I was the first one with the that kind. Yeah. My milkweed is here. It's going absolutely lethal.
All right, I saw some cars pulling into the parking lot, so there might be some more people trickling in. We have a bunch of people online, so please, if you can't hear us for any reason, let us know. I know the fans kind of get picked up in our audio system, so I apologize for that. We'll do the best we can with speaking loudly and making sure everyone can hear. Welcome back to the second pollinator pathway meeting, or potential pollinator pathway meeting of Franklin County. We're really excited that everybody came back. That means that you got our emails and you're interested in continuing with this effort. What we heard a lot from the last meeting was that you wanted to hear from Licking County Pollinator Pathway because they are super successful. And so you asked and we answered, and Susan King from Licking County Pollinator Pathway is here. And so she's going to talk about how they developed their program and all the things that they do, and it's quite a lot. It's amazing. So please ask questions. If there's anything that you want to know about, whether it be organizational or programs that they do, please ask. And then after that, Craig is going to get up and talk and kind of help us guide us to where we want to be as a group, and pick some potential positions that people can, some roles that people can take on. So, the PowerPoint on your computer.
It's on. Yeah, sorry.
Okay, well, with that, okay, so do the nod then.
Yes.
Okay, the old fashioned next. All right, well, great. Well, thank you, Madison. Thank you, Craig. Thank you all for coming out on a beautiful Thursday. Again, I'm Susan Studer King, and I'm delighted to be here to share a little bit about our experience in Licking County with Pollinator Pathway. We're still a very new. I was talking to Lynn, and she's like, I can't believe how much traction we've had in the last year and a half. I was like, oh yeah, it really has only been less than 2 years. So I'm delighted to share some of the experiences and hopefully encourage you to continue the pathway here in Franklin County. So quickly, I just want to share a little bit more about me and my background. Interestingly, I got my start in my early career around the corner on Grandview Avenue at Ohio Environmental Council when their offices were there on the corner. So my stomping ground a long time ago. And then I served as a Peace Corps volunteer in Ecuador, in the Amazonian rainforest of Ecuador, alongside some indigenous women's organizations. I have a few photos for it.
Sorry, I tried to share my screen to online. So sorry.
Oh, no worries.
Sorry.
They don't make it easy. It's
No, they really don't. Okay.
which screen? Oh, just this one. I was just a little bit about me. And then I returned from Ecuador and started a small sustainable flower farm with my mom. We started a business on the family farm where I grew up in Northwest Ohio. And so we had a business growing specially cut flowers for weddings and special events. And it was through that work that I worked with Florets, which is a flower farm and seed company, actually in Skagit Valley, Washington, and helped to launch 3 of her best-selling books, including A Year in Flowers, Discovering Dahlias, and Cut Flower Garden. And so my heart and my passions are flowers. I'm a flower nerd, and while I have retired from the floral design and flower farming business, I still am an avid gardener and still grow lots and lots of flowers. And so
A few years ago, I was in a book club that read Bringing Nature Home. And it was one of those moments, it was like that lightning strike, right? You remember like thinking back in a college classroom or a movie you saw or a documentary or someone where it was just like, oh my God, I could not stop thinking about this book. And there were so many things in Doug Tallamy's book, Bringing Nature Home, that I was just like, couldn't stop thinking about, right? His work has that effect on a lot of people, right? So next slide. So I, of course, went out and immediately started tearing up my yard to create a pollinator plot. So my son and we did some sheet mulching and I was really interested in creating pollinator habitat, as well as some flowers that also had cut flower or foliage potential, like if we could check both of those boxes. Next slide. So that of course leads to what else can I do? So in the backyard, I'm trying to reduce the amount of grass in our backyard and doing soft landings around the trees and creating a woodland garden by leaving the leaves and smothering the grass. So again, getting a little obsessed with all this. Next slide. Around that time, of course, I'm going down the rabbit hole of how do I learn more? And some of you perhaps tuned into some of these webinars that Ohio State did, of which Doug Talmy was one of the lead presenters. And after that, I told my husband and my son, it's like, we're gonna have a little movie night tonight. And I forced them to watch the webinar with me. And we were just all gobsmacked by like just how great of a communicator he is, the salience of his message of the importance of native plants. And I said literally offhanded to my husband, who's the sustainability director at Denison. I'm like, do you think we could ever get him to come to Denison? And literally the next day, he emails Doug telling me and says, hey, what's your honorarium for doing speaking engagements? And so next slide. So this is the backstory, which is I'm friendly kind of appreciate all the nerdiness of this, but so I elbowed my way onto the planning committee for bringing Doug Talmy. He said, well, meanwhile, he responded right away, absolutely, I would love to come to Denison. So Denison often will have speaker series in partnership with local organizations, particularly the Licking Land Trust, where I volunteer. And so we formed a planning committee of Denison, the Licking Land Trust, the Granville Public Library, Otterbein Granville, which is a senior living community. I'm also the 4-H advisor, so I was putting that hat on. And so we said, if we're going to bring Doug Talmy to campus, we've got to do more than just one event. Like, and preaching to the choir, right? But like, there's so many times that they bring speakers to campus. It's a small audience. And we need lots of people to hear his message, because he is one of, I think, the thought leaders of our time in this space, right? And so we're like, okay, we're going to do a public lecture. We're also going to invite all of the local officials from the school district, from our mayor and village council people, movers and shakers, to at least come to the dinner before his talk. I was like, oh, we're also going to do a luncheon, and we're going to invite some of the traditional landscape guys, and we're going to have that, because they're the ones that really need to hear his message. And then we're also going to do a hike and the fires. Like, we have to schedule. He was in Licking County for 28 hours, and he did 4 events and 3 class visits, and he was amazing. And so next slide. So this was, just one of the flyers. This was from the hike. We did a small group, like a bio blitz, essentially, in the Denison Bioreserve. And we all walked with a group, mostly with the Land Trust, and there's some other groups that were involved. But we all walked away from that like, oh my gosh, we cannot unsee all of the invasive plants that are choking out the bioreserve. That propelled a full, this walk with him helped propel a full change in management regime at the Denison Bioreserve. For years, it had been under Well, it had not been managed in terms of like controlling some of the invasives that are choking out this 350-acre woodlands. A big chunk of green space of woods that's right across from campus. So anyway, kind of fun backstory, right? So this series of events, the public lecture alone had over 600 people in attendance, which this is Granville's a very small town. That was a lot of people. Like, people were buzzing about this talk, and literally for weeks after that, I could not walk down the street to go to the post office or whatever without being stopped once, twice, sometimes 3 times by somebody who wanted to talk about what they heard and what they want to do in their yard. And we're like, we've touched a nerve here. What? And then, so we put all this effort into organizing all these events. You know, he goes on to his next speaking gig, and we're like, and so Pollinator Pathway became that now what? And so I wanted to provide that backstory of just kind of like this kind of grassroots effort and how it came about. So it's kind of a fun story, and nature nerds might appreciate some of the nuances. So next slide. So around this time, the Western Reserve Land Conservancy in Northeast Ohio had a symposium, a number of also webinars. This is where, you know, I'm the nerd tuning into all of these. And one of the presentations was on green corridors across the country and different communities that are working to try to create and connect habitat and, you know, that connectivity. And the main speaker was one of the founders of Pollinator Pathway in Connecticut. And she presented, and she was talking about how it formed, and it was the land trust and the library and gardening clubs and master garden. So she's describing all of the same organizations that have come together and saying, we need to do something in Licking County. Next slide. And so that was when the organizations that were tangential or involved in bringing Doug Talley to Licking County, more started saying, me too, like we want to get involved. This mirrored in a lot of respects the kind of organizational structure that Pollinator Pathway had in Connecticut. It's not just conservation organizations, it's universities, it's also libraries, which have been really great allies for us. And so as we were, you know, contemplating this what next, we looked at this model, we looked at potentially creating a wild ones chapter or creating a separate green umbrella or whatever. But again, it was because we had such an interesting collection of organizations that were kind of came together. We're like, it's got to be broader than that. And this really matched the interests of our like the folks that had come together. So next slide. So Pollinator Pathway started on the East Coast in Connecticut, like I said, with that group of groups coming together. And the idea is just, again, connecting these bits of habitat, whether that's a large park to a small pocket prairie in someone's yard or pollinator garden, and creating a continuous corridor of pollinator habitat. And what I really like about it is kind of this concept of it's connecting organizations. So we've got all these different organizations that have kind of come together saying we need to do something, but it's also connecting communities. Even though a lot of us were Granville centric, we also had folks from Dawes Arboretum and Ohio State Newark and the Sanctuary Garden at Newark High School. So we wanted it to be broader. So we decided to kind of form it as a county level. But a lot of other Pollinator Pathway communities are much smaller communities or even neighborhoods. But it's nice in that it provides that flexibility to be able to be as big or as small or define it whatever way you want. But it connects those communities, those organizations, and it's connecting the habitats. So next slide. The tenets of it are really fourfold. One, like encouraging people to plant native plants and flowers that are native to Ohio. Get rid of those gnarly invasives that are choking out our woodlands, that many of which are found in our landscapes, right? Encouraging folks to reduce the size of the tree line. not purists, we're not saying like rip up everything, just something achievable, reduce the size, take a little bit out at a time, reduce the amount of area in grass. And then adopt pollinator friendly property maintenance practices like the creating soft landings, leaving the leaves, not cutting back in the fall, all your perennials, things like that. So those are the basic kind of how to participate. What's nice about Pollinator Pathway is that it's not a certification program, it's not a super rigorous, it's really trying to be encouraging. And a lot of people, at least we've found, are very much in the starting phases of their journey. So this is approachable. Go ahead. One of the other things that we did right away was really cross promoting the stuff the events, that some of our partner organizations already were doing. So we realized that a lot of these groups weren't talking to one another, didn't know like, oh, I didn't know you were doing that. Oh, that's cool. I didn't know that you were organizing that event. So just better cross-promoting, coordinating, or even co-sponsoring events. These were a few from the spring, but a lot of the things that we weren't necessarily our events of Pollinator Pathway, but it was really just better promoting some of the cool events and speakers that other organizations were doing, like Dolls Arboretum, like Denison. You don't have to look at the website, but you can look, because right now, for example, we have events that the Licking District is offering on pocket prairies next week. Again, just better promoting some of the cool things that are happening in our county. We also did a number of just community outreach events. So lots of big festivals like our Licking Park District has a number of events that with large draws. And my little pro tip is offering a lead magnet, which in the business is like, give me something in exchange for your email. So instead of just giving away seed packets, we're like, here, you can have a free seed packet if you give us your email, and we'll send you information on upcoming events and information on how to create better, expand pollinator habitat in your landscape. We also would give away, we had some milkweed plants, and people really are excited about a free plant, but you got to give us your email. And so over the course of time, in the last year and a half, we now have over 1,000 people on our email list. So, which is pretty great for a very small group. Next slide. There's just a few reasons why this kind of concept and model works. Is I think this power of a very charismatic and beautiful emblem of the butterfly. It's because it's a positive message. Good grief, especially in this time of like political polarization, like having something positive, the stress that that people are under, like garden therapy is real, people. Like people really like being able to get their hands in the dirt and garden, and the symbolism of butterflies is really powerful. And a simple, affordable, free way to get involved. Like you don't have to pay to be part of Pollinator Pathway, but either as an organization or as an individual, it's really trying to make it accessible to folks. Decentralized and flexible. Again, what's cool about it is that it can be a single street. We have some pathways that is really looking at one single street and getting as many plots as possible on that street, or an organization trying to create a pathway between their plots, or a community. So thinking about it as a way, it's a flexible way to think about a pathway. And it gives people an excuse to reach across boundaries and talk. Like, this has been true with a lot of the pollinator pathways on the East Coast, is that one town they'll start a pathway and then people come through and be like, oh, that's really cool, you're doing that. We should do that in our town. How did you do it? And that's how it started. And that's kind of what has already been happening with our little effort in Licking County, that Delaware has since taken off and started doing similar things. But again, putting their own flavor on it, it's really dependent on the interests and needs of the partners that have come together to create it and what their needs are. So it's not dogmatic or super structured. It's really fluid in a lot of respects and flexible, but in a way that so that local communities can build it in a way that represents the flavor of their community. Okay, next slide. Yeah, so I mean, this is a crude illustration, but this idea of you've got some of these large anchor plots of parkland and other restoration sites, but you know that pollinators need, you know, some of them, the next slide you'll see that they can't go very far. So the distance for which they can travel to forage is very small. So being able to create habitat in between those big plots. So our yards, even portions of our yard are important to many of our pollinators. And so people like this concept of a pathway has really resonated with people in a way that sometimes some of the other, like, of course, there's lots of other organizations and efforts that are doing really amazing work with native plants and habitat restoration, but perhaps the name, it doesn't stick, or they've got an accurate, you know, like I love Licking County National Park. But that speaks to homeowners at a specific level and not organizations, and it takes more to explain than Pollinator Pathway. This really was one of the big reasons that we went with it. So next slide. And what I also love about it is even the smallest pollinator plots can have an impact. And to illustrate this, I do have like a super short video. I think the next slide, maybe it's a link. I don't know if it'll play. It's okay if it doesn't. That was silly ad. Anyway, this is a little video that one of our volunteers made to illustrate the impact of, it just has music, it doesn't have a voiceover, but I'll imagine cheerful music playing.
It won't let me close for you. Sorry, guys.
It's very short, it's like a minute. Drink too. Oh, you have drawings, yeah. Anyway, that was, sorry that the music didn't play with that, but, then if you could go back to the other slides. Yeah. And just a little of backstory there. So this was, the 4-H club that I am advisor for. We had, yeah, there we go. Our town was getting ready to unveil this butterfly art sculpture in our town, and we were walking by, we're like, oh my gosh, yeah, so they had it covered up. And we looked at the beds around it and we're like, oh my, that is terrible. And this is a butterfly theme park, we need to do something about it. And so we did something about it, and we went before the village tree and landscape commission and got permission to transform that little plot. Next slide. And so that became really kind of the anchor of our first pollinator pathway. Go ahead. And then the kids actually got an award for the work that they did in that, and they marched down the street a block away to the library and said, we want to do a pollinator plot at the library, can we do that? And the librarian was like, sure, let's do that. And so they had teeny tiny, we're talking like 4 foot by 4 foot baby little area that they planted butterfly weed. Slide. And what was really cool go ahead, is that literally it became Caterpillar Palooza. And the small plot, there were 42 caterpillars. And it was right in front of the library, right on the main drag of Granville, and it became a tourist attraction. Next slide. And like you can kind of see how they, I mean, they were everywhere. And the librarians were very concerned that people were going to be like stepping on them. They put caution tape and they put a sign up, and so like kids would be waiting by the school bus, maybe checking out, doing the caterpillar count. We were worried to get, like, they of course stripped plants. I mean, these were not big plants. We had 40 very hungry caterpillars. We're like running down the street to like get more milkweed, but we had more down the street at the other pollinator pathway plots. Anyway, this was just kind of a story, an example of how even the smallest plot and the smallest can make a big impact. And these kids then were able, we worked with a monarch educator who was certified to do the tagging, and that's where you saw the video. They were able to tag a few of the monarchs that were born on the plants that they planted on Broadway. So it was just a really cool. And they're all advocates now for pollinators. I mean, these kids are like on it. All right, next slide. Oh, this is just a really fun video. You got to look really closely. Do you see it? There's a chrysalis. We were finding chrysalis on the pillars of the building, on the statue. It was like the hunt. Anyway, it's kind of a fun. Do you see the caution tape keeping people away from it? Next slide. So this is what kind of our pathway on Broadway, the main street in Granville. There's now a new one that just came online at church, Statewide Church, and Lynn is actually working on another one that will be in front of the Granville Historical Society. So these are very public spaces, and people see them, they see the signs, there is like that kind of momentum and be like, how do I do it? And so it has just continued to grow. Next slide. I wanted to just share a few other of the activities that we've done over the past year and a half. One of which was a seed collection, which was super fun. We have the Granville Land Lab, which is 100 acres of, there's wetlands, there's tall grass prairie, short grass prairie. It's a learning lab. And we had permission to harvest seed. This was a library program that, again, we helped to co-sponsor. And then we were able to take the seed, next slide, and donate them to seed libraries. So volunteers packaged some of that seed and then distributed it to 3 different libraries in the county. Next slide. Then we're like, okay, we need to show people how to grow some of these plants from seed, which is funny because my background, as I said, as a cut flower farmer and grower, is propagation very different. And so we did not 1, not 2, 7 workshops this winter. They all filled up really fast. Thus we had demand for more. A lot of them were in partnership with libraries and senior centers, but for teaching the basics of cold, winter sowing and the importance of cold stratification for our native plants. Go ahead. We also did a native plant sale last September. We're going to do another one this September. Go ahead. We're also trying to raise public awareness about the problems posed with invasive plants. And so some of you may have heard about our little bounty program. Next slide. Again, this was an idea that Doug Talby shared during his talk at Denison, that he shares it all, if you've seen any of his talks, he'll mention this, of like give examples of other states and communities that have creatively tackled the issues of invasive plants, and so offering a reward essentially. So we got, I wrote a small grant from the Denison Venture Philanthropy Fund to be able to, among several other projects, but this was offering a reward for property owners that take out their invasive Bradford pear, which, as you may hopefully know, is illegal to plant in Ohio, but there's no plan at all to deal with the ones that we have here. So we wanted to, again, raise awareness that was our number one goal. And also hopefully get some native pollinator friendly trees planted in replace of them. So we gave away trees, and also we're still giving away vouchers for people that if they continue to take them out. We'll give them a voucher for a couple of participating nurseries. And then this is the project we're working on, is this mapping concept. So Pollinator Pathway, national, has a map where people can register their properties and the butterfly goes on a map. And a lot of other communities have tried to create what are essentially priority pathways or, priority corridors, as a way to try to channel limited resources. Like, okay, we're gonna focus on this particular pathway, this area to connect these bits of habitat. Where is that connectivity? And so that's something that we've embarked on, and we worked with a group of Denison students to kind of pull together the data, both from the national, like the people that have already registered their properties, as well as the land trust properties, as well as the habitat that US Fish and Wildlife has installed across the county. So trying to do all these data layers, we have a draft. It's still rough. It was a student project. They did a great job, but there's still some things we need to flush out a little bit. Maybe we can, I don't know if I'm gonna go into the weeds of all of it, but I did include a couple links, and then another example of a story map that other pollinator pathway communities have used effectively to kind of provide both a beautiful photographic as well as data mapping software to be able to share the story or kind of depict the pathway. So that map aspect is something that, like I said, we have started work on, but we have are still, it's in progress. We'll just say that. So these are, again, we have a steering committee. We invite representatives from the various organizations. Participation ebbs and flows. But they're all kind of feeding in like event info to the website that I maintain. Go ahead. I already talked about kind of 4 minutes. This is just in closing, a picture of my son who is very into plants and pollinators too. And we were participating in a little bee survey through Ohio State, identifying specialist bees in particular. And so we had so much fun. He was really good at catching bees. And then you have to sit there and monitor a native plant for 15 minutes. It's kind of like the whole process. So as we're doing that, I'm like, oh, he's so cute. Look at him catching bees. And then I look at the background and look what's lurking. So that's our property goes not quite to the road. And I was just, it was just such a buzzkill. Oh, that's a bad time. Okay, next. But anyway, it just reiterates to me that I'm going to see less of those signs and more of these signs. So I'm really delighted that you all are interested in potentially spreading the pollinator pathway westward into Franklin County, and I'd be happy to answer questions and offer encouragement and anything else you want to ask about our experience with the county. So thank you.
I think this is benefiting bird pollinators as well.
Well, I think, I should say I'm a generalist. I know a little bit about a lot of things. I'm good at, I am not an ornithologist or an entomologist. I'm an avid gardener, and like I said, I know a little bit about all those things, and not an ornithologist by training. But certainly the research and certainly Doug Talmey's work has illustrated how important it is to have an abundance of native plants for the entire food chain, right? So the insects that form the base of the food web, that are the primary diet of birds, So have we done research on these plots? No. I mean, we're a year and a half into this. It's still very, well, we have a lot of energy and momentum and excitement. But have we measured it scientifically yet? No. But certainly being able to provide stories like I did of what happened at the library and just those kids and a lot of other kids in the community outside of the 4-H club, like they learned a lot. Now that the kids know, like, monarchs are now endangered, like, then they're not, this is an endangered species now, and we just have a whole bunch of them right here, and it was just fun within the community too, of like, a lot of the experienced garden club ladies that would be like, I haven't seen a monarch all season, I can't believe you got 40 of them, right? So again, it's a small town, it's a very tight-knit community, and there's a lot of cool energy that has been created through this.
Your list of who the we is really helpful.
Yeah.
Who's the leader of the we, or the organizer, or the, is it you? Okay. So it's a citizen, it's not, I mean, I think that's important for us to understand.
Yeah, I mean, it started out, like I said, the first iteration, the planning committee of bringing Talony to Licking County was led by Denison. So they provided a lot of resources and support to that. And so I would say there's certainly, not that I want to say a hierarchy, but this is how the nature of this work and nonprofit. There's strong, committed, capable organizations with volunteers, and there's others that are they don't have the capacity to do a lot, but they support the idea in other ways through, and some of them it's just they will co-sponsor co-host events. But to go back to your original question, Denison, the Licking Land Trust, and the library, and actually Otterbein Granville were kind of real pillars of that early support and lending a lot of resources to that effort. But in terms of like organizational, like keeping it going, that is something that it's been me and it's been my passion project, my midlife crisis, whatever you call it. I'll own that. But that's kind of the way we organize. So we have kind of a steering committee of those organizations, and then we also kind of have what I call the worker bee volunteers, who I can text or email and say like, hey, we need hands to package seeds, pot up plants, help staff the table at this community event. And what's been so cool is like I'm having people like finding me and saying like, can I get involved? Instead of like begging for volunteers, people are like, what you guys are doing is so cool. How do I get in on that? So
Are there, that's really helpful, thank you.
yeah.
Are there examples nationally, maybe Craig would know this, of more larger urban areas? I mean, I think you make a really good point about Granville being the quintessential small town, and how those communities work is different than maybe
Yes.
more urbanized, larger areas, even though we can say we can break down urban areas into smaller communities and neighborhoods and streets or whatever, they work differently.
Yep.
And it would be helpful for us, I think, if we could somehow learn from maybe a larger community that has some success with developing a pathway. I wondered if you're aware of any national.
Yeah, there are some, Connecticut in particular, because this is where it was born, and there was a number of larger cities in Connecticut that have used this model to expand pathways there. Wilton is one. I'm not sure how big that is, but there are certainly some additional examples. I hope to have a few more to provide tonight, but I really wanted to share our experience and that's what I can speak to the most. I can't. I know a little bit about what other communities have done, but I wouldn't be able to speak with any authority to how they've organized. And I know they're all a little bit different. They all have their own flavor, but certainly this can and has worked in urban areas, and oftentimes it is starting. In some cases, it's starting on a small level, whether that's a community, a street, or even an organization. Like I can see organizations that are already doing this. It's like, okay, how do we create this connectivity? How do we encourage, we're putting in these plots here and here and here. How do we encourage residents that live in between them to dedicate part of their lawn into a pollinator plot? How do we, how do we do that outreach? What other, I mean, there's, as you can imagine, there's lots of really great public partners. Like I said, libraries have been super great to work with in our case. We, like, even the small libraries outside of Granville have all been really eager to work, churches as well, schools that want to put in some sort of pollinator habitat. So
Would you encourage, installing like mason bee houses in our yards as well?
I'm promoting plants. I promote that's really been the focus, is like in providing the plants for the pollinators versus the structures. I know that there's some debate in some, at least among some researchers, of like, while they're cute, some of those are really cute, and there's a lot of commercial ones out there that there's, like, you have to be cognizant of the maintenance required to them, because they can also be vectors for disease and mites. So that is not something that we have promoted. It's not, I'm not trying to dissuade that, but we're just really focusing on promoting native plants for pollinators as the primary focus versus structures. Yeah.
I just want to say, I have a small little wildflower in my front yard, and I saw a yellow finch there the other day, so they're so light. But, we had some rain gardens. The city's been putting in a bunch of rain gardens in our area. Not sure how, I mean, I'm assuming a lot of it's native, but I do have a couple of small plots, and in my neighborhood, people talk about taking the monarch caterpillars inside to hatch them. I was a little bit unsure about that. Have you ever heard of that?
Oh, that's a thing. Yeah, we generally do discourage that.
Right.
I mean, yeah. For
I
lots
mean,
of
birds
reasons.
eat them, they eat them.
Yeah.
You know,
Yeah, there's also, yeah.
and then I guess, how do you stop all the poisons? And I mean, yeah, they have a small little thing on the storm sewers, goes directly to the river. I mean, I just don't know how you get that information out to people. It's a big industry.
Yeah, it is, and that's why that's a bigger
Problem.
ball of wax, but, that's why, I guess, maybe it sounds trite, like starting small, like getting a few pollinator plots out there with the sign, encouraging others nearby, whether that's through giving giving away plants, helping them plants.
So a comment on that, two things. You can register with your county to do not spray for mosquitoes, and they have to adhere to it. I think it's 1,000 feet either side or something like that. So you can keep mosquito spraying, which like whacks everything, right? So you can stop that. The other thing that I've started to do is I found out that a lot of lawn companies that spray, that fertilize and do all that stuff, they are required by law to have that applied on, they call it on target. So if, like, I walk my dogs all the time, and there's a nice big sign that says, keep your dogs off the lawn, after they put down the stuff. And then the driveway, the sidewalk, and the road are just covered. And that's illegal. So if you report I take a picture of the little card and the address and the street, and I report it to the Ohio Department of Agriculture and Pesticide Department. Because it's bad to be walking on a lawn. My dogs are walking on it on the sidewalk. And it all goes, there was a pile the other day. One company left a huge pile of fertilizer in the curb. As they were pouring into the little thing, and they just left it. And I live in between two karst streams. So there's streams that come up naturally from the limestone. They feed right into the Scioto River. So that all what was gonna go right into the streams and right into the Scioto. So I just become a thorn in people's sides.
Yeah.
We do have some online questions.
Oh, okay.
Joanne asked, have you addressed not using pesticides when asking groups or people to participate?
Yeah, I mean, that is. One of the, it's on the side, pesticide free,
Yeah.
and trying to also encourage folks to be cognizant of, even. How their plants are produced, as we're learning more and more about even the residues on, pesticides on landscape grown plants, but. Yeah, so we, obviously, that's part of it, planting native, removing invasive, reduce the size of your lawn, pollinator friendly property maintenance practices, which includes. Not wanton use of pesticides on your lawn, so. Yeah, that's part of the program. Yeah.
And another one from Miranda. Do you have a recommended method or methods for killing grass to start a pollinator plot?
Recommended, pollinator plot. Started, yes, so it depends on the size. If you're doing something small in a yard, I recommend the sheet mulching method, which I. Saw in one of the slides, which involves. Smothering grass with cardboard and layering on compost, topsoil and mulch to kill the grass and then planting into that. That is an effective way. If it's on a small area, like you can't be doing a 1/4 acre of that, obviously. That's a whole nother thing. But if it's for most residential areas, if you're starting small, and I recommend starting small because it's gonna be maintenance. You still got it, even though it's great at smothering the grass, weeds are a thing, weeds will rule the world. You're still gonna have to weed. And so not biting off more than you can chew maintenance wise, but I really like the sheet mulching or the lasagna, so some people describe it. I don't recommend. You can do it, I have done it, but I don't recommend it, sod removal. Sod cutter, it's exhausting. Like that is just, will break your back and your body. Because sod is really heavy and you're disrupting the soil structure. So I highly recommend the sheet mulching method. If you're talking bigger areas, then that's another method, but hopefully that answers at least for the average homeowner residential.
Fresh wood chips are another.
Wood chips, yes.
So if you get fresh wood chips from a tree truck, it takes about 8 inches. But it's super effective and super beneficial for the soil and all the organisms.
Hi.
I just asked you, hi, you were just talking about why you chose Pollinator Pathway over, the Talamis Home Grove National Park, so can you speak more about what joining the Pollinator Pathway, like the advantages you come from it, or just something?
Sure. Yeah, because like I said, when we were looking at what next, we're like, do we affiliate with, like I said, the Wild Ones and Grand National Park, Pollinator Pathway, and it just, the Pollinator Pathway worked because, especially with the organizational structure of like the various group of groups essentially, and the other ones seem to speak more specifically to residential homeowners and not necessarily, we've got Dawes Arboretum, they know what they're doing. Like they're doing some really great research and work out there and are great partners. And so it also offered just, again, a flexible structure so that we could grow it in the way that made the most sense for our community. So no, I think those are all excellent organizations and they're all doing great work. And so for us, this was just the best fit and provided, we had zero budget at that time, you know, like it did require a lot of capital outlay for some sort of like, it's not like a certification or other type of affiliation fee or anything like that. They were very encouraging and saying like, okay, here's, if you want to use the logo and get the signs and do all this, like they provided that and were very helpful. And so that was very attractive to us because we did not want to reinvent the wheel of like having to create branding and maybe, you know, like going through all of that. We were just eager to get started doing something. And so that allowed us the fast track to do that.
Can you just speak on funding, like how the group pays for supplies for the seat sewing workshops or things like that? I know,
Sure.
you know, starting very small.
Yeah.
How do we go about paying for getting funds for this?
Oh, yeah, we are
As a
very,
certified
yeah, so
final.
yeah, so we do not have we're not a separate 501(c)(3) nonprofit. We do have a relationship with the Licking Land Trust. They're serving as our fiscal sponsor. So, that, which means that they can accept donations on our behalf and it's earmarked for the Pollinator Pathway activities. And so that has worked well. We did the funding, we raised funds via the plant sale, our first year, so that brought in some money. Again, we organized it under the, you know, with Licking Land Trust as their fiscal sponsor, so that's one avenue you can do. Is seeking a fiscal sponsor of an allied organization. Like I said, we started out where a lot of the events that we did were simply co-sponsoring and promoting other organizations' events, and we had a presence, so it didn't require any type of additional expenses necessarily. Then, like I said, we did write a grant for the Denison Venture Philanthropy Fund that has been great at being able to provide funding for the workshops that we've done. Yeah.
So the lovely lavender logo, how is access to that controlled?
They basically gave us all of the vector files and all of the files, like I said, you can, you know, they were very, in some ways like almost too loose, like, not really. It was very, it was great for us because we didn't have to like create it, doing, you know, like I uploaded it and was able to print a t-shirt and our volunteers were able to get their own t-shirts for the events. So, and then we've, you know, been able to do print out, like I've had all my swag. One of the other volunteers did an event, so I didn't have it, but you know, like just doing little printouts that utilizing the logo. So I can put, and I know Craig has already talked to some of the folks that are on kind of the national board about how to become like an official Pollinator Pathway community. But it's pretty, like I said, it's pretty fluid and flexible, which we liked, so.
Have you tried going to any of the, you know, suburban towns like West Waldo or Boulder Minutes, like would people make to set up a pollinator pathway?
I have not had the bandwidth to be doing that, because I go about reach, we've had people reach out to us, like, in some of the other communities and just say they want to do it, I'm like, great, go for it.
Yeah.
You know, so, yeah, because we've got, at least in Licking County, a number of folks in Alexandria and Newark and Tuscaloosa, Johnstown area that are. But again, there's a lot of folks in Granville, but that's where I live and where I know the most people. So, just how it worked out.
Is anybody working with Intel to try to encourage some habitat development along with that development?
Not directly, like that's a whole sidebar conversation.
They are looking for community projects though, because I got a little bit of interaction with OSU with, and they've asked OSU for some suggestions. It might be a perfect in to kind of get some larger plots.
Yeah.
You know.
Yes, I know the land, I've been trying to get sensitive because the land trust has also been cultivating them as a potential donor, and since there are this concern, like, yeah, you gotta do that, but. Yeah, I mean, they've certainly promoted their campus is going to be mostly native plants, which was encouraging. I don't know if you guys have seen that, but this got a story on that, and they had kind of a rendering of it that looks kind of cool. If it is actually, if they are truly going to be planting basically the whole campus, like landscaping it in natives.
They were giving away free native plants last spring.
Yeah. Yeah, so I know they reached out when we did our plant sale. They're like, we're interested in buying packages for our team. And I'm like, I was like super excited, like, oh my gosh, we are so tiny.
Yeah.
But we're not prepared for that.
Allison online said, those of us who have already made some of these changes to our property, like native plants and not using pesticides and stuff, go online and add your property to the map, so we start populating it.
Yeah, I mean, that's one way to do it is like, because the national map is already set up so that you can add to it, and then it's flexible in that if you want to create, what we're trying to do is like extra layers, like way more granular. Like one of our kind of our partners is a researcher at OSU New York who really wants to add some additional data layers to that. But at the beginning level, absolutely just go on and put your, enter your property in there, put a sign up. That's how it gets started, right? Easy way to.
Is there a website that we can?
Yeah, so pollinator-pathway.org is the kind of the national one. I created a website for I should explain this, I apologize. So, Pollinator Pathway, kind of the big organization, umbrella, whatever you want to call it, not really an umbrella, but they have links on their site to all of the communities in all the states. There's now like 300 communities that are doing Pollinator Pathway. Right now, there's only a couple in Ohio, which we are one. They do give you basically a landing page if you want to just have basic information. That's on their site. Because there was so much stuff that we wanted to have on a website, what we ended up doing is creating our own so that we can have ready and rapid editing capability, so that, and then that is linked from their site. But they have, maybe you can pull up the website, the pollinator-pathway.org, where they have a form where you can get on kind of their map. And then, yeah, so the pathways, when you pull that down, you can see all the different states where pathways are. And then, yeah, when you go into Ohio, so then you go to Licking County. And then that links to the site that I built. I just used a Google site, it was free and easy, and so, and then you can see like the leading event is one that, again, Licking Park District is doing this cool event next week with US Fish and Wildlife. Actually, you guys should come out for that. It is awesome, the US Fish and Wildlife biologist teaches part of it, and it's a cool, you get to kind of tour of one of the prairies that was installed at one of the parks in the county. Anyway, so this is, you can just scroll and see kind of that's our bounty program. You may have seen that before. I don't know why.
Did you design this?
I did.
Okay, good.
Thank you. Yeah, so it's, again, Google Sites. It was, there's not a monthly fee. It was really easy to build. And then if you want to click on the events page, you can kind of see, again, the cross promoting and cross referencing of some of the events where Pollinator Pathway sometimes will have a representation there, and other times it's just like wanting to make sure our 1,000+ email subscribers know. So we'll send out roughly monthly emails that then will cross promote some of these events. Don't burn down there, it's up. Yeah, come out and see, tour the Denison Bioreserve, where again, because of the work of Pollinator Pathway, like there's been multiple invasive species removal volunteer days. And so this is an opportunity to kind of look at how that management effort is, what it looks like now. You know, we did a big Earth Day pull, and like go back and see what's coming back up, what's hot, you know, what's resprouted. And then, yeah, we have, because we did so many winter seed sowing workshops and I got so many people growing native plants. We have an abundance and that we're gonna be selling them in September, so. I've got a few, if you've been around, I got a plant problem. I'm a seed hoarder and I also have a plant problem. It's all good, right? As I joke, it's like, I don't have a purse collection problem, I got a plant problem. Don't live in an HOA, so I don't live in an HOA, it's fine. Yeah. Yeah. Any other questions? Yeah.
Can we go back to the main page and look at the map? Because we've talked about the map in the last meeting, and then when we go to the breakouts, I think a lot of people haven't seen the map. It's just right here on the front page of the website. You just scroll down a little bit and it's there. That's it.
Yep.
The signs are $12 for a small and 20 for a big.
20 for the large, and Pollinator Pathway will also allow you to buy them in bulk and resell them, so you can do it as a fundraiser. I've done it both ways, where I just, on our website, I just send people to their to the order form to get it, and they do a really nice job of fulfillment. They get them out fast, they're packaged really nicely, and they have a little letter with them that's really lovely. And so if you don't want to mess with selling them and fulfilling them, you can just include that link where people can buy them there, or we have, like I said, bought them in bulk at the bulk rate and then resold them for the same price as what you can buy online, and then you make a little bit with them. So we'll have those at like our plant sale and a few other events.
Sorry, I need a new computer.
Yeah,
Spinning wheel.
Yeah, it's probably, but it's a Google map, so it's not fancy. It's not nearly as fancy as the Homegrown National Park one, which they invested a whole lot of effort into that region of that. So this is, again, some communities are layering on additional data points to create priority pathways for the country.
Is there a certain place that you have found worthwhile here in central Ohio, given that we have clay soil and, you know, a little bit alkaline soil? Have you found anything as well?
Well, it's kind of like what kind of setting it's shade, like what, I mean, I can speak to at least the plots that we did in Granville, and not like the little butterfly garden that look really good. Are, you know, the echinacea, the purple coneflower, Culver's roots, small milkweed, the Sleepius incarnata. We did a lot of Jacob, like, so in shady areas, Jacob's ladder looked really nice, lots of ferns. We also are dealing, I'm sure you've worked with your pressure, so finding stuff that's also a little less resistant. But there's some really great lists on the Pollinator Pathway website. We've also developed a few of our own, kind of like native plants for small plots that I've put together. So you can see the kind of the cluster of them over in Licking County.
Like very few within 270.
Yeah.
Gotta get going on that.
Yeah, so there's already people that have heard about it and have registered their properties. So there's already people are playing on it, which is great.
Is it on the website? There's a like a design or something?
Yeah, so on there's a lot of principal lists. I mean, lots of organizations created, but the Pollinator Pathway does have some for sun and shade and special conditions. And then we have, like I said, we have lickingpollinatorpathway.org. It's like URL for the site that I built for the county. That we have some plant resources on there you can look at.
Yeah, I have to give one piece of advice for this group, or like a recommended next step, what would you say?
I would say plant native plants, get a little mini garden in the ground and put a sign up. Like, do it on your own property, do it on properties that you have not control of, or like your church, or if there's someone else in your community where you can adopt a plot to get started, get plants in the ground, and just get started. That's my advice.
And lastly, would you give us some kind of granular details about the brand care plan? Trying to imagine like the annual budget of where you're getting the replacement trees from.
Sure. So,
The details of how that works.
yeah, do you want to hop over to the balancing page? So the way we set it up is that people have to register for the reward. I just did a very simple Google form on the Google site. And people then, in the spring, they had a chance to pick up a tree that was in conjunction with an event that we did. The Soil and Water and the Master Gardeners, like they were already having this backyard conservation day. That was our pickup. So, when people filled out the form saying, yes, I removed the broad repair, they got an email auto reply, in which I gave them instructions of like, okay, great, come pick up your tree on this date. Or you can get a voucher. So the pickup day came and went. We had trees that were donated to us from Soil and Water, donated to us from some local nurseries. We did have a budget in that grant to buy trees as well, but we were amazed at how many donations we got. And then, so people came and got their trees or a voucher where if they wanted to get a bigger tree or a specific tree or what have you, they could go to one of the participating nurseries. So we worked with 2 nurseries who set, like, basically created like a voucher / coupon so that when people come and put their voucher that they can pick out a native tree. It has to be native. One of the nurseries is native only, but another one that in our county that has, it's a little more traditional, but we work with them to get some native tree, pollinator friendly native trees as an option. And so now we're continuing it's on a rolling basis. So when people fill it out, we send them the voucher in the mail. And we also ask for photos before and after. And people have been pretty good at submitting them. Some of them not, but they clearly like they'll send some random pictures sometimes. There's some fun ones. Yeah, so that's essentially how we have run it. There's lots of examples from other states. Maybe one they might be doing something a trade-in, but certainly not. We borrowed the idea from other states and then just put our own twist on it. And then did a lot of media outreach and had some in the spring when they're in bloom and it's really obvious. It made for an easier promotional effort. So. Other questions?
Do you have to reimburse the nurseries when they redeem their
Yeah,
vouchers?
so they submit an invoice to us once the vouchers have been redeemed. So the vouchers are $30 each for each one. And so each time they get critical mass, they'll bill us and we write them a check. That's how we worked it out. There's lots of other, it just depends on but they were really great to work with. And I almost wonder if some of them, they'll just be like, it's a donation, you know, like they've just been really, really generous.
So that was, you think about grants on the money for those trees that you're.
Yes.
Okay.
Yep, so that was covered in. And we did this, you know, it was a small grant, like $2,000, this was not a big. And I would urge if you wanted to do it, start small, like, you know, it's. And build. You know, do it the first time, start small and build.
When they have, before you have the native plant sale in September, will you list on the website that you see that?
Yeah, the way we're doing our plant sale, so last year, how we did it is similar to what Soil and Water does theirs, where it's plant packages. And we had pre-purchased and reserved the natives of Harmony their plugs. So could buy them and then package them and resell them as kind of as a kit. And then we also had some so we pre-sold those, that was great. We actually could have sold twice as many, we didn't have enough, like people wanted them. And then we also had just people who buy individual plants, like at the farmer's market, come and get them. This year, because we have so many people growing their own native plants, we don't have to buy them. And now it's also the interesting logistical challenge of like tallying up what all we have, because we've got it's kind of dispersed among several volunteers who are growing them, and then seeing like how can we package these to pre-sell. And then people buy them ahead and they come and pick them up. But you know, they're more apt to buy, you know, it's a $64 kit. For, you know, so they're gonna spend more than if they were just going to the farmer's market, they might buy 3 plants or something. So that was really successful. Doing it that way.
How many plants did you provide in your kit?
It was a 16 plant kit. And we decided to do, because I couldn't narrow it down to 4 species per kit, we did 8 species, which made it that much more complicated, but I was like, there's so many cool plants, you need these plants. So it was 2 plug pots of 8 species per kit. We had a sun and a shade, and then we did a grower's choice, which that was where we kind of supplemented the stuff that our first try, winter sowing, growing them out through the summer, potting them up, and then selling them as a kit.
Allison asked online, does the yard sign have a QR code so that neighbors can learn?
I don't think it has a QR code. Should, but it has the website on there. It has pollinator.pathway.org, so it links to the national site. But the signs are, I was gonna bring one, I apologize, they're, like I said, we've got an active group of volunteers, and one of them had all the swag bag. So I didn't have it, to be able to show you the sign, the metal signs. They're really good quality, and like I said, they do a really nice job of fulfilling the orders. So it's like one less thing you have to do, so you can focus on planting plants, right? And not like ordering signs and doing all of that stuff, like focus on getting the plants in the ground. Like that was going back to Ptolemy's message, like we gotta put the plants back, right? Like this is part of how we work our way out of this biodiversity crisis, how we work our way out of this climate crisis. Maybe that's oversimplified, but that is the stuff that gives me hope, that gives me the energy to keep going and seeing the beauty that these plants bring, and the butterflies and the bees and the joy that it brings to our family and our community. So I hope that it brings you joy, and that, you know, the dread of doing all the little things, like put the plants back and plants on, friends. Yes, thank you, Susan.
Yes. People that have additional questions afterwards, I totally was not keeping track of time. I thought this went till 7:30. I remember it was 7. So Craig is going to come up. He is going to try and hopefully organize us a little better. Discuss some ideas of how we can actually be an organization rather than just a group of people that meet every so often. So I will turn it over to you.
I might just stand here if everybody's comfortable with that.
And please speak up, because
Yeah.
again, the AC is very loud, for the thing. Sorry.
I'm Craig Toothman, for those who I think I've met many of you, but certainly not everyone. I'm a Columbus resident. Columbus City Breed Spot Program Advisory Board member and the Xerces Society ambassador for Central Ohio. Been working on this idea with miscellaneous small groups of people for about 6 months, and I think the only good idea I've come up with is to try and get Susan to move back to Franklin County. That'd be the best thing we could all possibly imagine.
Love you all.
There were some handouts. Those are some Xerces materials that I gathered out just as an example of some of the things that are available online. National Wildlife Federation, Audubon. I mean, there's so much information online that actually it's part of the problem for a regular citizen. People come up to me and they say, heard about this thing about bees, or what's the deal? Everybody's talking about planting native plants. And where do I start? And you go to any given website and it's like the handout. I mean, it tells you more information that you can almost process it. And then the individual resident has to go to multiple websites to figure out whose plant sale is this weekend, who had one last weekend that you missed. There appears to be very limited interconnectability between the existing organizations that are already doing fabulously great work here in the Central Ohio area. But Susan, in one of our conversations, used the word amplify, which I thought that was really good. An idea to amplify the good work that these organizations are already doing. You don't really have to sell this idea. The idea is already out there. People just want to know how to do it, how to get involved, how does it coordinate with my organization that I'm a volunteer and member of, how can I support and collaborate with some other organization. Anyway, that's sort of the idea. I jotted down a couple of quick answers to a few of the questions that people raised, which I thought were excellent. On site preparation, Susan mentioned sheet mulching. That's probably the most environmentally sensitive way to do it, but it can take time. And a small site is definitely the way to go. People sometimes use what's known as solarization. You can use plastic, it can be clear or black. That works much faster, but there are concerns that with the heat, you're basically sterilizing the soil. So all the microorganisms that essentially lived in there and are components of healthy soil, you just cooked them. So that is a downside. And then of course, for large areas, the unfortunate technique that seems to be most widely utilized is to use a broad spectrum herbicide, hopefully apply it one time, or at least in the fall, maybe another lighter application in the spring, and hope that you never have to do it again. Monarch rearing, I think someone asked over there. The Xerces Society is specifically opposed to that. People are trying to raise monarchs, and it's a very well-intentioned idea that you could raise these things and then release them. There are real concerns starting to emerge from the scientific community about genetic problems, because you're potentially rearing these and releasing these, and they're not mating outside naturally and migrating, things like that, things that I don't know anything about. But anyway, so that's a delicate matter that normally I think is not really supported. The signs, I spoke with Pollinator Pathway literally yesterday and asked about the QR code. They're totally cool with that. What I discussed is possibly making a small adhesive sticker, if you will, that could have a link to what I'm imagining will be our website. and then you stick it on their metal sign. They've talked about maybe trying to have a QR code, but it's like the sign already says their umbrella organization name, so they kind of don't need it. But we can certainly do that with their blessing, and that might be a way to immediately link back. Someone sees a sign, clicks on the QR code, could go directly back to our Franklin County effort. So I think that's a wonderful idea. The Mason e-houses, that's an interesting issue. There are some bees, they need different sizes of cavities. So you can't just put up, one size condominium for all. There are maintenance aspects of whether the tubes get filled up with cavities bees for next season. There are some disease questions, et cetera, et cetera, et cetera. I think the bottom line is nothing is pure in nature. Certainly nothing in our efforts is going to be perfect. So my only advice would be look into kind of anything you want to do and use your best judgment. I had a couple of quick announcements, which involved the Trinational Monitoring Blitz is coming up. Maybe you haven't heard it, but this is a big deal for Canada, the United States, and Mexico. It's going to be held from July 26th to August 4th. And it's basically a citizen-based opportunity to deal with gathering information for monarch migration to identify species and locations. I think the Canadian comparable to our Fish and Wildlife Service, Canada, it's kind of the main sponsor. It's tied to iNaturalist, et cetera, et cetera. You can get more information at Monarch Joint Venture, if you're familiar with that organization. But that's a nice thing. That's literally an international event coming up that people can participate in.
Is that a count? What is that?
I think as a citizen scientist, and I haven't gotten the form or anything yet, but I believe it is associated with numbers that you see, et cetera, et cetera, et cetera. And then all this data, since it's such an extensive area, an official monarch scientist can't possibly collect enough information. Where you've got potentially thousands of people over a very large area that can say, hey, I saw 3 of these things on Tuesday. It was maybe this temperature. The wind was blowing this direction or whatever the form asks you. But then it goes in and gets the data crunched by the scientists, and we're really building, not we, but they are building a tremendously enhanced data bank on monarch butterflies. Recently, there was data about the eastern monarch population. The most recent count was down to 0.9 hectares. A hectare, I think, is approximately 2.5 acres. Madison, is that about right? I believe so. So you're talking about less than 5 acres, and that's the eastern population. They're the ones that are supposed to be doing better. The western population, they hand counted, I believe, in 2022, 2,000 individuals. And there used to be millions. So U.S. Fish and Wildlife has approved that the monarch is going to go on the endangered species list. The only reason it's not has not been posted in the past is they have literally higher priority endangered species. So they don't have the money to really work with this one. So they've approved it, but it has been kind of stalled out, waiting on administrative and budgetary capabilities. So anyway, that's the monarch thing. A quick note, Ryan Boshi from Columbus Harbor Fest is coming up. Yeah, there's Ryan. August 24th. I have a tentative tabling reservation for this Franklin County effort. I'll be tabling there as a Xerces representative. At some point in time, this group needs to tell Ryan, do we want that table or not? Because he's trying to manage that whole a giant project, and there's plenty of people who would like to have a table. So if this Franklin County idea doesn't want one, as a courtesy to Ryan, we need to get back to him as soon as possible. So that's that. And how are we doing on time in Madison? I'd say that's 7:00.
If there's anything else that's pressing that you wanna cover?
I'd love to add one more thing, if people could hold on for literally just a couple of minutes. I have a whole bunch of issues. I've tried to break down this entire project into, maybe sequentially. There's really only one that is kind of a big deal, and that deals with finances. There are some significant grant opportunities happening right now. One of them, the deadline for application, I believe, is August 2nd. So it's kind of a time crunch to figure out, could we avail ourselves of this opportunity to apply for a grant? I talked to Darlene Sillick from the Ohio Bluebird Society. Laura Fay's written a lot of grants from Flow. She couldn't be here tonight. She had the watershed council meeting. But if we have any interest, any of you that know about grants and things, I certainly don't. We need to get onto that. We potentially are going to miss our opportunity. I think the one grant from the Bluebird group goes to City of Columbus. Isn't Franklin Soil and Water administering that? It's $50,000.
And from the Bloomberg?
There's one of them from Bloomberg, and then there's a second one. Which you guys are monitoring something.
Yeah, that's the way, that money's going towards watershed groups.
Water, okay, that's
That
the
would not be-
watershed. Well, there's a second one for any type of youth-led endeavor. I think it's between the ages of like 15 and 24. So, you know, there was the idea potentially that we collectively could assign a working group to some young people, maybe build the website or whatever, and potentially qualify for a grant from that bucket. So anyway, something to consider. If you have any input on how to maybe avail ourselves of these grant opportunities, I'd love to hear from you. And that's, I will call it a wrap. With that, thank you.
Thank you. I would say thank you to Craig for his continued enthusiasm and effort to really get this group going. I don't know if we'd be here without him. He's really just been pushing us for the past 6 months, and we are grateful for it. Again, thank you to Susan for being here and for being so inspiring. I hope you guys found it as informational as I did, and I think there's a lot of great takeaways and a lot of momentum still. So I think what a good idea might be to share everyone's emails. We have everybody's emails that have been to the past 2 meetings. We had a lot of people reach out to us asking, this person said this thing at the meeting, I would love to connect with this person. So if you have a problem, if you don't want your email shared, please send us an email. Otherwise, we will probably send out a spreadsheet with everyone's emails so you can all stay in contact with each other. But otherwise, going forward, I think Craig is doing a good job of communicating. So we'll set a date for the next meeting, and please stick around and chat and connect with each other after this. But I think that's all for tonight. Yes. All right.
Any concept of what the group thinks we should do for a next meeting?
Yeah, we could do another meeting here or a tour or have another speaker. Totally up to you guys. Do another survey if you want to see what the interest of the group is. Totally up to you guys. Any initial thoughts? That's right.
I do have 45 minutes saved in the shelter house for Columbus Arbor Fest. Kind of a multi-purpose time right now, but we're creating events for the festival that's August 24th at Gladstone Park. And I've saved some time in case this group wants to reconvene or talk in the shelter house.
That actually might be a great idea to invite people that are there and have an informational session. I'll kind of host a little workshop and talk about this initiative and get the people that are attending the Arbor Fest to, also be involved. So I think that's a great idea.
There's kind of several ideas for that time, but this could go there. be part of that.
Yeah, we'll keep everyone connected so we can keep moving this forward, because I think there's a lot of good ideas here.
Well, on kind of what he's saying, what can we have ready to hand you for that day?
Right,
Or do we get together week, 2 weeks, and who gets together and who gets it started? I think we all need to ask ourselves. Yeah. I'm not asking you, we all need to, I will say that if you want something basic, it's not customized to this area. Pollinator Pathway has like a generic brochure, if you wouldn't have to do anything besides print, it's okay. It's not like spectacular, but it gets the job done. Or you could take it and do some customization if there is someone that has that skill. But yeah, I think that's a great opportunity to those kind of events, you know, people don't, especially if you have a seed packet or whatever else, people are like, what's the merch?
Anything further?
Addison, I think Ryan, you know, offer really to have that as a participatory moment. I personally think it'd be helpful if the group that again before them.
Yeah.
Because, as Lynette said, there's some issues of, you know, are we even going to affiliate the pollinator pathway? I mean, we don't even know what we are yet, so it would be hard to represent a group at the Arborfest that maybe doesn't exist. That's just a thought.
yeah, well,
A way to be before on 20.
I would encourage you all to kind of decide that. Again, you're welcome to use our office or meetings and stuff like that. We're happy to host Zooms and do all that organizational stuff on the back end, but getting the actual meeting plan and stuff, we'd love for you to organize yourself as a group and do that type of stuff. So again, we're going to share everyone's contacts so you guys can all keep in touch and hopefully move forward.
So when would we need to let you know if we want a table?
ASAP, we're basically out of this. There's gonna be some cancellations. We're almost there.
I have a suggestion, because with Arborfest, I'm with the City of Columbus Recreation and Parks Department, and we're doing like a pollinator like event at the same time as Arborfest, but we have a volunteer event before Arborfest, but then we'll have our outdoor education and recreation table specifically near the Whetstone Prairie. So if you run out of room, we could also maybe just be by the prairie at Whetstone Prairie. So if we, yeah, just the thought.
Just be like Susan and do it, just do it.
I'm in.
All right, there you go. Yeah, that's all it takes.
Let's do it.
Two people raise their hand, and then you've got. Yeah,
Okay, so you want to table it or?
yeah.
Okay.
Wait, did I just decide we were gonna do it?
Yeah, I think that makes you the leader now.
Thank you. I'm a volunteer with Land Trust. I'm not on the board, curious. Oh, that's right. Cause at Doug County talk, at Swayze, my mom was even the stand up. I gotta follow her, but just got out. So.
I mean, it's possible, Nature Conservancy does, I mean, they have. The local property is headwater of the Darby, Big Darby. And they do the butterfly counts and they do invasive removal. And they might be a good partner too.
The Nature Conservancy has no property there.
Right.
Well, okay, it's
I
not
mean,
Franklin County.
they're everywhere, but there aren't any, you know, specific properties that they.
Well, yeah, I guess it's maybe it's Logan County, the headwaters. Darby. Okay, it's nice to be kind of, okay.
Anything else?
Do you want people to send ideas or meetings for the next meeting to do?
No.
I saw that green here. I'm happy to volunteer to do that. If you want to send me an email, I'll try to keep track of responses, whatever, and maybe I'll give that information back to you, send out a feed, something like that. Does that work for everybody?
Craig is very organized, so we support Craig organizing.
Sounds great.
Thank you, everybody. Feel free to hang around, chat. I'll meet our local celebrities.